I don't know what went on at TYT, over the 10 years that
Francesca was a contractor.
Francesca was
no benefits,
a contractor there. I do know, only because I have firsthand experience about it, that Jenk was completely lying in his characterization of what went on with he and I. I mean, I sort of couldn't quite make out exactly what he was saying. But I will be absolutely clear about this. Jenk and I, in October of 2016, went and had a drink at the Tort conference that I would go to. And in Las Vegas, he invited me for a drink because he wanted to ask me, and this is specifically said, what can I do? And I should say at that time, the TYT liked to pretend like it was some type of network, that it was not a network. We basically had we were basically TYT's client. And for, I think it was 20% of our YouTube revenue, they would do all the optimization. Mm-hmm. We were too small of an operation to do it. And so they would do it. And occasionally they'd put our stuff on their Facebook page or something. And Jenk came to me and he said, but he wasn't my employee. He wasn't
employer
or employee or any of it. And Jenk came to me and said, what can I do to tamp down this feud with Jimmy Dore? And I was like, fire him, because his politics suck. And I think Jenk accused me of wanting to call him names. I had a problem with Jimmy Dore on his TYT show saying it didn't matter if Peter Thiel was on the Supreme Court. And then subsequently, when I invited him on to discuss it I was very measured about it until he started acting like a jackass. I said, hey, dude, we could end up with Donald Trump appointing 3 Supreme Court justices.
Yeah.
And Jimmy's response was, oh, we could also have the moon fall into Lake Michigan.
You're trying to manipulate me with fear.
Exactly.
Right. And I think Roe v. Wade was also the subject, and that was basically him saying that it's more likely that the moon falls into Lake Michigan than Roe v. Wade gets overturned, and look what happened.
That was back in the day when he acknowledged 3 Supreme Court justices as a bad thing.
Right. Yes. I mean, sort of vaguely. And that was it. Jenk wasn't reprimanding me, because if Jenk had tried to reprimand me, I would have told him to eat my arse.
Right.
There was no reprimanding. I don't remember when we left TYT, but it was basically when we decided, I don't need them to optimize anymore. It wasn't because he fired me because I was calling Jimmy Dore.
I didn't even catch that.
Garbage or whatever it was. They were upset when we left because we were just paying them money for stuff that we didn't need to really do. And so that was it. And, listen, Jenkins upset because he got 20 million from, was it Katzenberg, and he had gotten a couple of million before then from Buddy Roemer.
And who knows how much Polymarket's paid.
Well, yeah. But I'm saying he got all this money invested,
right,
and they blew it. They blew all the money. They didn't know what they were doing. Cenk at the time was desperate to be seen. He kept saying he wanted to be on in airports. And I'm like, dude, you got the biggest YouTube channel. That's going to be the future. And so he was very aspirational about his business. That's fine. I'm very much like 1,000 flowers bloom.
Absolutely.
But the idea that he's talking about somehow he doesn't like to get into name calling. He a month and a half ago was calling me all sorts of names. Now,
low rank grifter.
Frankly, I don't care.
Right.
Apparently, he's very sensitive to being called. But we're going to do something here on the program right now.
Uh-huh.
I would like everyone in this office, you can do it off mic, to call me a bitch, and let's see what happens.
Wait, can I just wait? Are you going to remove me from the show?
Well, I guess we'll find out.
You're a bitch.
Oh, God. Oh, God. This is so contrary to the community we're trying to build here. Matt?
I'm supposed to insult you?
Yeah.
You stutter a lot.
No, you're supposed to call him a
Whoa,
bitch.
that one cuts a little close to the bone, buddy.
Use a bad word.
Listen,
Asshole.
take it easy.
I see up in
Listen.
here.
The point is that that Jenk is looking for everyone to blame but himself for his current predicament over there. And we held off for a long time and took a lot of criticism for it, for not critiquing what was going on over there. Because largely, I'm not that interested in policing people. But some of the stuff they started to do was really, really bad. And so that's what we started addressing it, and they're lighting themselves on fire over there, and that's all well and good. But they should do it in a way where they're not telling lies that are easily debunked. Now, just because there seems to be a desire to sort of like have all the things out, I just want to tell one other story, because Cenk and I didn't have a tremendous amount of interaction over the years. I've known him since he was on Air America. And I filled in a couple of times, I think, on TYT, 15 years ago or something like that. The one thing that really struck me in the one sort of like behind the scenes interaction I had with Jenk was at one point, and I had looked it up when, I don't know when exactly this happened. It was during, I think, the first Trump administration. I could look it up again in the emails. I was invited to a meeting with some of like the Google, or I think it was Google, government liaison people. And it was me, Jenk, and two of these people. And they were asking us about potential hearings on antitrust that Google might face. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying, with all due respect, I like the fact that, we do make money on YouTube. I appreciate you people. I do think that Google should be broken up into many pieces. And they were like, okay. And I was like, and there's a growing antitrust movement. And I really do hope they're successful in pulling you guys apart. I don't want you guys to lose your jobs. And I don't think you will, or whatever, but I just want you to know that. Jake was not only so dismissive about it, I do specifically remember, he goes, well, I've read Matt Stoller. I will testify on Google's behalf in front of Congress. Now, it was both hilarious to me that Jenk thought that would be valuable to them.
A little delusional.
Yeah, the delusional part, I've always sort of understood.
Amusing, yeah.
It always, was part of Jenk's charm.
Yeah.
But I was like, this guy, where are this guy's principles? I mean, I remember the first argument we had on air was about Bill Clinton back in 2008 or 7, because he thought that Bill Clinton was one of the good Democrats, because when Bill Clinton was in office, he was literally a Federalist Society member, mm-hmm. a Republican and lawyer. Now, I love converts, and sometimes they have the zeal of converts, but over time, if you are untethered to some type of fundamental ideology, what happens is when you hire people, for instance, you don't even know what to look for, because you don't have that yourself. And so you can hire people who walk in and go oh, these are the principles I believe in. But if they can't articulate them in a way that hits your understanding of why you have these beliefs, they could turn out to be a Jimmy Dore.
Right.
Or a Dave Rubin.
Right.
Or an Anna Kasparian. Or a Michael Tracy.
Brianna Wu.
Or a Brianna Wu.
Who's still on the payroll, I guess, but not Francesca.
Ben Glebe.
Yeah. Ben Glebe.
I mean, all these things can happen.
Yeah. Right. Or honestly, I think you can also see it reflected in the way you treat your employees, right? Like with the efforts to bust the union.
Oh my God, the union busting was so gross.
It was. And even at the time, I received a call from somebody high up in the network asking me not to speak publicly about it. I was young. I kind of have regrets about that I should have spoken up a little bit more publicly, but I was also not making too much money and try not to rock the boat, but it was a part of the decision that I made, to leave. But it's also, I think, kind of evident in the way that he decided to do this kind of 30-minute monologue criticizing Francesca, who never, there were opportunities for them to hire her full time, to give her benefits, to value her labor. And instead of doing so, they just kept her on as a contractor. She took a check from them, sure. But then to make a whole show out of banning her from the network and doing this video about somebody who has very little power. You are the employer. She is the employee. She's the contractor. And to throw her under the bus like that, especially when her show has like a fraction of their subscriber count, I really do think it speaks to the workplace environment that's becoming more and more evident for people here.
And I will say, like, this is going to be the last segment that we do about this kind of drama. I suspect it won't be the last segment we do about their takes.
Right.
Because literally every other segment we've ever done about them has been about a take.
Right.
That we think is not good to have. But we should also say, when is this happening? The 31st?
Oh, yes. The poly market bet is expiring. So you've got until the 31st, although now it's down to 1% chance.
It's down to 1%. We really blew it because this could have been like, I could have had like so much opportunity if I could have like somehow, and I know exactly who I would have borrowed the money from.
Like crypto?
Yeah, scroll to the question part. Although we can't, it's not legal in the United States. At one point it was 37.
Well, I know people who live, in Europe.
Wait, Americans can't even bet on this?
No, it's not legal in the United States. And TYT sold the naming rights of their studio, which they crowdfunded from their audience back in the day. They turned around and sold it to Polymarket. So did Kamala buy ads on the Majority Report? It's now down to a 1% chance. That's unfortunate.
Now, here's the irony of this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put this in the chat, guys. Here's the irony of this. You know how that dynamic of like every right-wing accusation is a confession. Mm-hmm. The sometimes, and this is the thing, is that like, and I think everyone is subject to sort of like ambition taking over and chipping away at any type of principles that you have. It is a danger. It is very danger. It is a huge danger in every business, I would imagine. Certainly in, YouTube, where every, of every click that you're going to get at any minute and this and that. And certainly like in this, where like we have an email list. We put ads on our email list. We do that. But from day one, we have always vowed we're never going to sell or rent out our email list to anybody else. Just because I personally find it annoying and whatnot, but I don't think there's something wrong with the practice of doing that. I do think that there is something wrong with the practice of doing that and then falsely claiming that other people are doing it.
Right.
And as if it's problematic.
Yeah, it's interesting because I knew that this was the case, but I wanted to check again that I was recalling it correctly. So I just put into Twitter, I think it was TYT Biden email list. So you can go to 2020. This is probably around the time that I received a call from someone high up in the network asking me not to speak publicly about this.
Wait, was it about this or about the union busting?
Oh, that happened twice. So it was about this, that TYT was selling its email list seemingly covertly to the Biden campaign in 2020. So this guy...
the exact thing that they accused us of doing?
Yeah.
That's the point that I find.
Isn't that interesting?
Listen, I don't like... Again, I'm not judging that practice. We don't do it because I personally find it annoying to like sign up for one thing and have it be sold to somewhere else. And so we don't do that. we'll put an ad from Sunset Lake in like the AM Quickie, but that's a newsletter that we sign up and we have advertisement. But I would never sell the email list to somebody else, because then it's out of your control and God knows where it ends up.
Let alone to a political campaign, because we're supposed to be a show that's independent of the politicians that we're trying to be critiqued.
I would run if Bernie's campaign came to us and said, will you do a whole email about how Bernie's great? I would say yes.
Probably, yeah.
But I'm not going to give you my email list.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you my email list.
Right.
I mean, they disclose it here, but it's interesting, their disclosure. Go to the next page. This is the Biden.
This is the screenshot from 5 years ago now.
Yeah, 2020. But here's down at the bottom here. You can see like the above advertisement for Biden for president been sent to you via the Young Turks email list. At TYT, the bulk of our funding comes from you and other TYT fans. Now, that's also a lie. The bulk of their funding came from Katzenberg, certainly by 2020.
Didn't go to employee raises or bonuses or anything like that. I wonder where it went.
And that's what allows us to maintain our independence as an alternative media outlet. On occasion, we forge partnerships with select advertisers as a source of additional. We do not share your information with advertisers, and the views expressed in this email do not constitute any endorsement or recommendation by the Young Turks. I mean, like, it's hard to trust it when they're like sort of being a little cagey about the $20 million investment they had in there. Now, I don't begrudge them that either. I don't have those kind of ambitions to become, like the world's largest, that's not
right.
Just,
we just want to do our show the best
a matter
we can.
of taste.
Yeah.
But the problem is with taking money is that sometimes if things go sideways, that money becomes a source of pressure, and you start to do things that is really more about that. This is when the flights to El Salvador took place, Jenk had a tweet that was like, I think we should be removing these things, but you need to listen to a court.
The criminals,
but we need to be listening to a court. We are not in an era where parsing things this thinly is in any way effective. When you do that, you are obscuring what is the fundamental issue here. That flight would not have been right even if they were unable to get to a court to enjoin them from flying there. Nothing about that flight was right. Nothing. There was no due process. You don't know who's on that flight. When you start having to do if, to justify the actions of an authoritarian, administration, you have lost the thread.
Right.
And they're going to keep doing this. And they're going to keep talking about Max left, and I'm not going to go on the stage with Dr. Phil because he's a Nazi. Well, listen, Dr. Phil is not technically a Nazi, but he is out there like, I'm going to do everything I can to promote going around with the immigration officials to show everybody how dangerous these people are. I mean, and when you leave that stage, if they're not mad at you, you haven't done your job. We're going to go get a beer.
Yeah.
Listen, put your money where your mouth is. I will debate you on all these issues.
Right.
We made that clear from day one. I invited you on before you decided that I had called you a Nazi because I used an example from an Errol Morris film, not even in reference to you. Before that, I had reached out and said, come on the show, and he flipped out.
And that's beyond what you said, even though he's misinterpreting it, is beyond the pale. But apparently nothing that Charlie Kirk said or did or Dr.
Charlie Kirk is has said virulently anti-Semitic things.
And racist things about how he wouldn't trust things. If there was a black pilot.
Of course.
And it's okay. You went on Jubilee and that did well. And, whatever, us going on Tim Pool because we go in with the object of being adversarial because the only way that you win against the right is when you defeat them in debate and you go at them aggressively.
That's what else is funny, because basically Jenk's been doing all this attention-seeking stunts in the Trump era, the second Trump era, but it's Sam who's making the splash with like the Jubilee thing. Like videos of Sam Seder debating MAGA supporters viewed millions of times.
Well, and the point is like, where is the evidence that he has somehow like forged a middle way with these people?
A third way?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the funny part was like he is in lockstep half the time with the same Democratic establishment that he claims his movement is. It's just funny how that happened.
He said Josh Shapiro was the most progressive VP pick when Kamala Harris was considering him, and over Walz, over Bashir. It's bizarre. You've got to wonder, what necessarily, is behind it, I guess.
Sometimes, like I say, the ambition associated with where you want your show to be overcomes your
judgment.
Your judgment. But it also, the other factor is like, just why are you in this? What are you doing in this?
Right.
And that's how sometimes you hire over and over again the wrong people.
Yep. And it's okay if there's...
Or the good people end up going like, I can't be here anymore.
That was kind of, what happened with me and what happened, my friend Dan from the internet, other folks, and Francesca knew that it was likely that, when she decided to speak her mind a bit, that tie would be severed. But she's doing great work over at Zateo. People should check out the Bituation Room. And I guess to put a pin in it here, this was just from, when was this? Like a few months ago, January. The way that the show seems to be downplaying the Trump administration, just a few seconds of this, because it was disproving within weeks that what the Trump administration is actually doing.
You can be against that practice, but Donald Trump...
Yeah, I'll start that there.
I know that Francesca Fiorentini is currently attacking you about this as if Donald Trump is unique. He's novel compared to past presidents, certainly a special kind of evil that we've never seen before. In her mind, these are the gulags that she was warning about. But in fact, this has been a long-standing practice. You can be against that practice, but Donald Trump isn't doing anything new here.
Okay. I think she was specifically talking about Guantanamo. Now, A, progressive have been railing against Guantanamo since day one. B, this practice is unique because we've never taken people who are one step on a U.S. territory and put them down there in a sort of an extrajudicial state. So she's wrong on the merits, wrong on the facts, wrong on the analysis, and then also, let's just zoom out a little bit. I think it's pretty hard at this point, even now that we're a full 68 days into this administration, to not say that Donald Trump is uniquely authoritarian and bad for U.S. society.
Well, she was also mocking the idea that Project 2025 would be implemented prior to the election, which we were starting to become more critical of their coverage then because we thought they were doing harm.
And let's be clear.
And that is that. I mean, frankly, to downplay that prior to the election, given what we're seeing the effects of that now, is really inexcusable.
The key word is mocking.
Mocking, yeah.
Because it wasn't just like, I think maybe the case about Project 2025 is overstated. I think there's some nuance here. I think there are some cross currents in the constituencies of Trump, and he would need a supermajority in the Senate or something like that. No. The whole thing was part of a larger effort that was happening on the right. I don't know that she was coordinating it with them. Maybe she's just taking her cues or whatnot.
I wouldn't be shocked, yeah.
To push back on the notion that Project 2025 was the agenda. Remember, this is when Trump was like, some of it I've never read. I don't know. So she was engaging in a manner to literally misinform and to in a very consistent way of what was going on the right. Now, I'm not saying that she was in coordination with them or whatnot. I get the sense that like she's taking her cues maybe from some of these people or whatnot. I mean,
Hello.
totally. Yeah. I mean,
She has some friends.
but
Some friends on the right.
I don't care about Jenk's like sort of motivations. I don't care about her motivations. Again, this is, I think, the only one that we've talked about, like, you know, sort of drama or whatnot. I don't care about that shit. Honestly, I don't. I have a million other things to think about. But we're going to push back on bullshit that comes from there. In the same way that we push back on bullshit that comes from Dave Rubin, bullshit that comes from Jimmy Dore, bullshit that comes from Ben Shapiro, bullshit that comes from... No, do we see every clip? No. Do we have the ability to see all that stuff? No. But that's what we do. That's one of the things that we do. And so when they are pushing some type of like bullshit narrative, we're going to call that out. And to some extent, there's more of an investment for us to do this because we still probably share, although it's increasingly small, an audience. As they move further to the right on not every topic. I know that there's this notion of like populism and it's so blinkered and whatnot. But, and I guess as we move max left.
Yeah. And we also don't claim to represent the whole left, which is the straw man that Cenk uses there. Because
well, it's a little bit of projection there, because if he's a little bit territorial and a bunch of people like Zateo and us are moving in on the TYT.
Only I represent the left. But like it is, I think, you know, unfortunate because we're going to have to call that out because they have over 6 million subscribers. I'm not sure how many people are, you know, watching, but like, that's a huge base of people who may tune into politics kind of casually and they subscribe, maybe they're kind of center left or liberal or whatever, with the impression that this network was a progressive one. And so when you hear the parsing about trans rights, or when you hear right-wing talking points about immigration like we just played, that has the capacity to maybe change the minds of some people in their audience who are not necessarily that tuned in. And our project is to try to get people to be more educated, to learn about left-wing ideas, and to build our country in a more positive direction. And that's why if you play Dave Rubin games, you win Dave Rubin prizes.
I also just want to say one last thing that they keep touting. In 1965, there was a Gallup poll in February of 1965 where
which one are you referring to?
There's a Gallup poll in 1965 where there was you saw where I lost that figure. Well, I guess the point is that in the United States we have a history of polling being against civil rights at certain junctures during civil rights.
I have one here that I actually have saved on my desktop that the views of MLK during his life. In 1966...
When did they peak versus when did they fall?
They peaked in August 2011, where 94% of people, this is Pew, but it was in 63, he had a 41% favorability, 37% unfavorability. But in 66, August, he had a 63% unfavorability rating with the American public.
So his unfavorables went up from 63 to 66. That was because he started talking about Vietnam and political economy and poverty.
Right. And so, I mean, we can probably find...
What about the abundance?
I mean, look,
abundance agenda.
61 to 21% Southerners felt the government was moving too quickly, then rather about right in 1965 on civil rights.
Right.
You can just go on, group after group after group. And the idea that people are voting in this country, in the center and in the left, and in Democrats, are voting based upon trans
Sports.
women in sports is so baby-brained. Aside from the fact that, like, you could say, like, 80% of people don't want trans women in trans sports, is wholly irrelevant if it's like the 30th thing they're voting on or the 21st thing that they're voting on.
Yeah.
And this is aside from like even the moral argument of civil rights for everybody. As a purely political matter, the idea that you would flip on this stuff because of polling makes you look like a weak ass bitch.
Yep.
It is the Josh Marshall bitch slap theory of politics, which is why Democrats were so at the mercy of George W. Bush, is because if you can't stick up for what you believed 2 years ago, how are you going to stick up for me?
It's Kamala Harris style.
Yeah.
And
or what Newsom's doing right now.
And it communicates a weakness. It communicates a lack of belief and sincerity when you say, well, the polling is this way. I mean, I can understand the idea of like strategically, do we want to introduce this legislation now versus later? But I'm sorry. It is detrimental to your electoral ambitions as a party to abandon civil rights for people because there is like, vague polling against this. And I say vague only because if it's the 21st thing that people are voting on, I don't care if it's 100% to zero. That's not what is going to dictate the outcome of these elections.
You see the reverse with gun control, for example, right? You have wide swaths of the country that agree on gun control, but it's not necessarily something that motivates people to change their vote, except for that small fraction of the amosexuals who will vote.
Oh,
based
they're
on that.
certainly on the right.
But with the majority opinion, like this
even
is
when you have children being killed after killed after
Yes.
killed after killed, 30 kids mowed down, still they're not voting on that.
Right. And this is the popularism weakness that is being advocated by guys like Matt Iglesias. And so what's odd is that it's this critique of Democrats, but their politics are seemingly very aligned with the most centrist milquetoast Democrats
Swazi
in the country, like Swazi, or writers like Matt Iglesias, which is about essentially just following what the polling says. Because I mean, who cares about principles? When you get a poll that shows that perhaps we need to do some work on communicating this issue, I guess that's over. I guess we don't have to worry about it anymore.
The best politicians know this.
Yes, you have agency over polling.
Strong and wrong.
Right. You have Republicans know this.
We can write.
Republicans know this. Republicans have been able to change polling just by sticking to basically their core messaging. And if we had an equivalent on the left, then we wouldn't have to be worrying about this kind of thing. And the fact that they're even engaging in this and letting polling lead their principles as opposed to principles leading their political analysis, I think kind of says everything about the state of that network.
I mean, part of it's a skill issue. They don't want to have to stand up for principles when times are tough, because that's a hard thing to do.
Yep.
All right, that went on far longer than we had anticipated. That's the other thing. We don't spend hours doing clips and getting clips to do a big monologue on this. I didn't even think we were going to talk about this today.
I got a text from somebody saying that the dude opened his show with it.
Today?
Yesterday. The dude opened his show with a half-hour monologue that made Francesca look amazing.
It was uploaded
oh boy.
1 day ago. We put this up.
This is their best viewed video in quite a while.
Their best viewed video, yes. Jenk explains why he's removing a contributor. Go to wide. A contributor from TYT network. That's 250,000 views. And the comments, I would say, it's the first one. Francesca's 100%
Wait, this is not
right.
cut off. We can't see it on our screen.
Oh,
just zoom out a little bit more. Yeah. I mean,
pull it up so we can see the comments. Pull it over. There.
Matt, can you go to top or change sort by? Yeah, top comments, not newest.
Number one, there's a reason TYT has lost so many subscribers over the past several months and have since flatlined. Anna and Jenk have taken a bad road. Glad I unsub, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Ooh, there's a us mention. Someone branching out to
Hassan,
us.
Secular Talk, Francesca, shout out to all those folks doing great work.
I mean, I'm genuinely sorry for all the people that are having to go through the, psychic issue that this is causing because, people you trusted for decades. Jeez.
This is brutal.
Well, never read the comments.
Oh my God.
Is this what Anna was talking about when she's saying we're afraid to be afraid of your audience? Because ours is a lot nicer to us than that one is.
Yeah.
Whew. All right, we're going to take one phone call. I apologize. I really thought we were going to take more phone calls today. I mean, I know I say that every day. Calling from a 508 area code. You are the first and last phone caller of the day, but the last one of the week.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Nice. My name is Vitor. I'm just calling from Framingham, Massachusetts.
From where? Framingham? From Framingham.
Oh yeah.
Near the old Chateau de Ville, by any chance?
That's past my age, Sam.
All right.
But sorry, all jokes aside, the point that I really wanted to get to was an experience that I had in Lynn. I was just visiting and going to a Jimi Hendrix concert, and I was smushed between this
Wait a
older
second.
lady.
You went to a Jimi Hendrix concert?
He died in the
it was one of
60s.
those- Yeah. Nah, it was just a cover band.
Oh,
Marcus
okay,
King
all right.
I
there.
was going to say,
Yeah.
and you don't know the Chateau de Ville?
No, I'm well into my 20s. But
Okay.
still an old head here. But to the point that I was calling in for, I was sitting in between this older lady who had, we were chatting a bit, and I kind of wanted to do my own thing, just enjoy my nachos. And she goes in and she discloses to me that she's a Republican, right? And the thing with me is my family is Brazilian, immigrated to Framingham in the 80s. So I don't appear Brazilian, but she just went on a rant about immigrants and talking about the Columbia student, claiming that she was a member of Hamas. And it was my first time really experiencing a Trump supporter who's been kind of delusional by years and years of, even dating back to Reagan of, us versus them. And it just stunk. So my 2 points that I want to ask you guys is, one, what are some tips and I guess some ways to handle those conversations when people like me encounter them? And two, I just wanted to hear your point about just, the exploitation of the immigrant community, especially with Latin American and Brazilians, providing so much capital in states like Massachusetts, but being demonized for quote unquote crimes that they are.
What did you say to her? Did you say anything to her?
I did. I felt a little bit uncomfortable, but
Well, I would imagine.
yeah, it was definitely a scenario where I didn't feel comfortable. But, after, years and years of watching people like you guys, Hassan, I thought I was, ready to aim back, right? But I just kind of froze. So,
Well, I think in that situation, I mean, because you're first generation, right? I think you should
Correct.
say, like, I think, you say, like, well, what do you think about me? And get her take on you. I mean, I think, like, the way to influence someone in that particular situation, the asset you have for them is that, like, their assumption of who an immigrant is wrong. And you have the opportunity to sort of show them that. I mean, you could say, look, immigrants, undocumented immigrants, add literally billions of dollars to Social Security, and they don't take it out because they're not legal. That their crime rate is less than that of citizens. That innovation, exposure to other cultures is what spurs innovation. people being exposed to things that they don't regularly see is helpful in their development. It creates a stronger community. I mean, all of those things. But I really think that, like, on some level, you can say, like, what do you think about me? I mean, my folks are immigrants. I'm first generation. I've grown up around immigrants. And then all of a sudden they have to sort of like question their assumptions. You know, look, there's only so much you're going to be able to do in any interaction. So I wouldn't put too much pressure on yourself. But I think that's, you know, that can be enough to sort of just make them, all you need to do is make them question one assumption they have. Just even question it. And that begins like that. Sometimes that one questioning of one assumption cracks open a door.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, no, I really need to hear that, and I'll definitely, I mean, I know it's no pressure, but definitely kind of put that in my tool bag. So thank you guys so much.
I would Google the Chateau de Ville. It's a real shame you don't know. I saw
I will.
Saw Rodney Dangerfield there twice. It was fantastic. Appreciate the call.
Yeah, no worries. Have a good one, guys.
It's a venue?
It was, apparently. Ladies and gentlemen, that sound indicates that we are done with our phone call portion of the show for the day and the week. I have got to move here. So we got a bunch of, Rob from Dedham says the Chateau de Ville is now multiple furniture stores in the front and a truck rental company in the back. Not to date you, Sam, but it closed around 40 years ago. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Hey, it's a little uncomfortable.
1984.
Majority Report. Do you think Tim Pool being added to the White House press pool is a coincidence, or does someone lobby for him? YouTube had told us that they are that they're doing that the White House press pool is going to put people like that in. We could even play. Would you like to go down there?
Sure.
You seem really excited.
Let's check it out.
I'd like to get down to DC. I'll go do a day.
Matt will be our stringer.
I'll make friends with Ducey.
Gerald from New Orleans, another week, another 5 days of not having my call get through. Sam, I'm starting to think you don't value or our entirely one-sided parasocial relationship. Gerald from New Orleans, I can't tell you how much that's not true. I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. A lot of time. An uncomfortable amount of time. People have talked to me in the office about it. Mortified Penguin Emma caught strays in that bullcrap video too. Of course, it was a clip of you making an awesome point standing up for trans people.
Yeah, I really could not care less, to be honest. And it was just good for Francesca. Like, all of her, she looks awesome, and glad to
It was sort of a weird thing to do when you're talking about we're letting go of someone because, not because of their political views, but because they're rude to me.
Right. To include
Why would you include you and your political views in it?
Probably I would have just tweeted out, like, good luck, Francesca, on all your future.
Yeah, like, we appreciate you working with us. I mean, but
good
also,
luck at Zateo.
But also, she, if John wants to have her on, he should be able to do that. And I don't know. It's a little weird to just, like, ban her without his consent. I don't know.
I'm the boss.
It is weird. I've been banned from Fox News.
Right.
It is weird to get banned from an entire network. I mean, it's one thing to say, like, I don't want to have somebody on the show. It's another to say, like, the people who work for us can't have somebody on the show. It doesn't. It's inconsistent with the idea of we want a lot of ideas.
Right. Or having a beer with people you disagree with.
Imagine Sam telling me I couldn't have somebody on Left Reckoning.
I'll tell you this afterwards.
Okay.
I don't want to. But there is I actually have a funny story about that.
Oh.
All right. Val Shells. When are we getting I Am the Left and Max Leftist t-shirts? We've definitely.
Oh my gosh.
Julie, get on it. Max Left.
Max Left.
I'm staying in the race.
Jonathan Armstead, this Cenk stuff has been an issue for a while. In the summer of 2016, I was getting upset with his takes on affirmative action, Black Lives Matter, and how he was letting Jimmy say nonsense. I told Uchi Wally, and he said it was a coincidence, as Sam had the same problems, and he encouraged me to listen to the show. I haven't listened to TYT since. Also, you have a better format. Your interviews with writers, activists, are something Jenk says he won't do because the algorithm doesn't support it. To this day, when I meet TYT fans, I encourage them to make the switch. That show is just the 700 Club with more frequent fundraising appeals. Tim Pool. Sam, can you send me your discount code for Hello Tushy? I've been shopping for a replacement bidet, but the tariffs are really eating into my budget. Kyle Leck, regarding Francesca's criticism of Anna's coverage on crime and homelessness, there was a story she did about 6 months ago before I canceled my membership that was so bad, I emailed TYT about the errors, and it took several months and multiple emails to get anything other than an automated response. Frankly, I don't think she read the study she was reporting on, but instead read some right-wing hacks reporting on it, or at best, read the summary and decided it was wrong because it wasn't consistent with her prior beliefs, and then mischaracterized studies methodology because she didn't understand basic statistics. It's a bit old, but I found it to be a glaring example of Anna putting her ideology ahead of her so-called reporting.
She went on Jillian Michaels and said she's improving her media diet that misled her for the past 5 or so years by introducing National Review to it.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.